Good evening. Welcome. Oh,
Good evening.
that's gonna be. Shh.
It's talking to you.
I always talk to myself. That's for a change. I'm talking back. That's good. All right, we got Motorcycle Mimi and Marianne online. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, whoever might also be online. All right. So welcome back. This is Revelation ongoing. I think what we're doing is picking up in chapter 12, verse 10, I think, is where we're going to be going. And so just as a little bit of a, let me see here. So a little recap, quick recap. So chapter 12, we had the great sign appear from heaven, and this is the woman clothed with the sun and stars and all this. She gives birth, and the child is taken up into heaven. Then war arose in heaven, Michael and his angels fighting against the dragon. Dragon fought back, he was defeated, he was cast down. And I think that's all we had. So basically what we had a picture of is kind of a really compressed image of Jesus, the incarnation, his birth, his life, death, resurrection, and ascension. He's taken up into heaven, and that's when all this activity goes with Satan being defeated and cast out of heaven, and he can no longer access heaven, but that means he's now down on the earth, flailing all around. So what we're going to get into is what does it look like now with Satan here doing his nastiness to everybody? So that'll be chapter 13, well, the rest of chapter 12 and then 13. So let us get right into it. Chapter 12, verses 10 through 12. All right. And I heard a loud voice in heaven saying, "Now the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Christ have come, for the accuser of our brothers has been thrown down, who accuses them day and night before our God. And they have conquered him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, for they love not their lives even unto death. Therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. But woe to you, O earth and sea, for the devil has come down to you in great wrath, because he knows that his time is short." Okay, so this is a brief little song of praise. So you've got Satan is cast down. So he's very angry. Ooh, okay. But he's really a dragon, so. Either that or he's a cat. I don't know. There we go. There we go. Okay. Cats are evil anyway, right? So Satan is cast down out of heaven and onto earth. All right, that's earth. Sure. All right. But in heaven, so up here, there is much joy. They're rejoicing, they're praising, because, and this is, there was much rejoicing. They're excited, they're happy, because, Satan has been defeated. He's been cast down. He can no longer come and accuse man before God. He is done. He is defeated. Jesus has taken his rightful spot. So this is a brief moment where all the people of God even can say, yes, we rejoice in the heavens because Satan is defeated. But, slight issue. Woe to you, O earth and sea, because now he is here. And he's not a happy camper, as you can tell. He's very upset. He's come down in great wrath. He's very, he knows he's defeated. But it's not over yet. So he knows his time is short. He knows that it's only a matter of time until Jesus comes and it's really over. So he knows he's defeated. And so whatever he does here is going to be acts of desperation. He wants to do as much collateral damage as possible. He wants to take as many. He's really upset at the people of God, especially because they are the ones who he can no longer accuse. So he's really going to ramp up everything against the church, against believers. It's going to be bad. So and this is why we live in a constant fun little state of, well, whoa. Woe, because Satan is here, but yay, but he's defeated. But oh, he's here, but he's defeated. But he's here, but he's defeated. So it's this, we're very bipolar in that respect, I guess. But when we focus on this, when we are feeling the woe, we remember the joy. And so this is really going to, oh, there's more. There's more in chapter 12, sorry. Okay, yes. So, woe down here, joy up there, Satan's down here. So what does this mean for us then? All right. So, don't worry, you guys didn't miss really much of anything. So, moving into chapter 12, verses 13 through 17. And when the dragon saw that he had been thrown down to the earth, he pursued the woman who had given birth to the male child. But the woman was given the 2 wings of the great eagle so that she might fly from the serpent into the wilderness, to the place where she is to be nourished for a time and times and half a time. We'll get into that. The serpent poured water like a river out of his mouth after the woman to sweep her away with a flood. But the earth came to the help of the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed the river that the dragon had poured from his mouth. Then the dragon became furious with the woman and went off to make war on the rest of her offspring, on those who keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus, and he stood on the sand of the sea. Okay, so the dragon pursues the woman, and the woman, if you recall, represents the church, the people of God, well, the church. So the woman and her offspring now are the church and her children. You guys, all of us. So the dragon, Satan, he's not happy because he couldn't thwart God and his plans. So he figures, if I can't thwart God and his plans, I'm going to thwart the woman and her children. But let's see. So the woman was given 2 wings of the great eagle so she might fly from the serpent. So she's protected. She's given a way to escape. Wings of an eagle, which if you go to Psalm 91, I will bear you up on eagle's wings. So this is all very oddly scriptural. Who would have thought? Satan pursues. God provides, protects, all that. Now, so she flies into the wilderness, into the world, where she is nourished for a weird amount of time, right? So, a time, times, what? And half a time. Who? Okay. So for this, what is the length of time that we've been working with that we've been hearing over and over and over again?
3.5 years.
3.5 years, which is 42 months, right? 1,260 days, so take your pick. They're all the same. But for our purposes, we're looking at this here. Because if you go with a time, well, let's just call that a year. Just for giggles, right? 1 year. All right, so a time could be a year. Times indicates plural, right? Well, it can be any number of, but if it's more than one time, let's call it 2 years. What's half of a time?
6 months.
6 months. What does this equal? 3.5 years. Seems to fit. And you could look at that and be like, oh, come on. You're just making this up. You could get away with this, a time, a section of time. Well, how do we, we could say a day, a week, a month, a year, a decade. I mean, these are groupings that we could, but I mean, a year, fine. Times, I mean, come on, it could be 4, it could be 5. Hold on, and this will become a little bit clearer, and what I think is really obviously points out. So anyway, so the idea is, so for this amount of time, so this is Jesus and his ascension and all that. This was regarded to as 42 months, 3.5 years. We saw this already referred to as 42 months, 3.5 years. So basically when it says that, and God will protect and provide for his church for this amount of time, if it's 3.5 years, then it fits really nicely into this framework, okay? Because it's just, we have that. All right, so keep that in your head. So, okay, so he nourishes the church. We've got this kind of framework set up. So we've got this. All right. So here's the fun thing. So this was a time when the prophets were assaulted, right? So we'll call this a time of tribulation. Certainly, when Jesus calls this himself, a time of what? Tribulation. Well, you know, a funny thing happens when you add in, so all of time from the fall to Jesus' return, scripturally, is referred to in this framework as 7 years. The fullness of time. During these 7 years, there is tribulation. Guess what? Later in Revelation, there's going to be something referred to as the 7-year tribulation, where other people who believe in dispensationalism and all this other stuff, they look at that and say, see, Jesus returns, and then there's 7 years, like 7 literal years, and this happens, or there's 7 years, and then Jesus returns and all this stuff. Or maybe it's just referring to all of time that we live in tribulation under sin and death until Christ returns. That almost seems to work. That almost sounds like that must be what it means. Especially when all of Scripture talks this way. That there's not like and again, when dispensationalists look at this and say, it's a 7-year tribulation. It's got to be an exact 7 years. It's like, okay, you can't say that the locusts are Black Hawk helicopters from the government and that the mark of the beast is a microchip and then say, it's 7 years. It's like, well, why? You can't do that. You can't be figurative here and then literal here, and it doesn't make any sense. Just pick one. So if we're going with all of Revelation being pretty much symbolic, then this makes a whole heck of a lot of sense. And you don't have to worry about some special tribulation. Life is enough tribulation. You don't need any extra. It actually, all it says, and so when you go back and look at this stuff, so if you look at the handout there, with just verses 13 through 17, I mean, it sounds like, just look at it again, where, what is the drama here in the picture? So there's a dragon and he's chasing a woman into the wilderness, and then she flies off, and then for a time, all the stuff, and then the serpent poured water out of his mouth. Even creation was then saved the woman. God commanded creation to spare the woman. So God allowed this to be spared, and the dragon becomes furious, and he makes war for her, and it's like, oh my goodness. All this says is, and by the way, until Jesus returns, you'll have tribulation. Which, shocker, if you go through the Gospels, guess what Jesus says? In this life you will have tribulation. But never fear, because I have overcome the world, right? It's really easy. Revelation is a piece of cake. And it's not that, stuff like this is not that deep. Really? Because all it's saying is like, and once Christ leaves, Satan will pursue you. But don't worry, God will protect you and save you. That's it. See, Revelation is boring because it doesn't tell you anything that you didn't know from the Gospels or the epistles. It's like, it just colors it in really weird ways and makes it, I don't know, maybe John was like, hey, pastors in the future are going to need a lot of fun Bible study stuff, so here, let me put this together. People will love it. So thanks, John. It's not that complicated. Any thoughts, comments about that? See, I particularly like the whole 7-year tribulation thing, because it's like, it's kind of a bummer because, people have these long, drawn-out theories on how this all happens, and it's like, it's just now.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What was the
Oh, okay, so the question is, what is the significance? How did we get to the 42 days and all that? We've got, and I don't have, for my leader notes so far, the outline that I'm up to page 71. So I think it goes back to in the page 40 something. Essentially what you go back into Daniel, Ezekiel, all of that stuff. I believe Daniel has a reference to beasts that arise that afflict for a time, times, and half a time. Wait, where did we hear that? The same, I forget exactly, Daniel, Ezekiel, Zechariah, talk about 1,260 days. So this is, and you got to remember that so John is basically this vision that John is receiving is coded, with numbers, with symbols, with all this stuff. And the code, what is the key? Is that right? The key to decode it? You have to have the right key. So the key is the Old Testament. I mean, it's the scripture that John had, because that's what they had, right? So you go back into the scriptures, and then you get the key. So that's why you see so many, and we're going to get into the beasts, the two beasts that rise out of land and the sea, goes right back to Daniel, same kind of stuff. And so he uses that callback to 1,260, time and times and a half a time, break it down into 42 months, that kind of thing. And when you're dealing with Old Testament, New Testament, kind of two halves of time, and you want to represent the fullness of time, 7 being the fullness, the full week of creation, the full time that God spends, whatever. So then it breaks out into 3.5. So it really falls neatly into place there, going as far back as Daniel, Ezekiel, all them. So the fun thing is that whole concept of this whole fullness of time being represented as a 7 goes way, way back. So John's not inventing anything. He's using, and he'll say things like, those who have ears, let them hear, those who have understanding, let them reckon, blah, 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 blah. Because he's saying, like, you guys know what I'm talking about, wink, wink. Because he's talking to his audience. So just like us, making references to artwork in whatever, in our little space, and it's like, you guys know what I'm talking about. It's the cardinal in the yard. You know what it is. And you'd go like, oh, yeah, it's a sculpture out there. Meanwhile, everybody else would be like, oh, there's a bird somewhere? And it's like, okay, but you guys know. It's right out there. So, same kind of concept. All right. See, this is when it starts to get fun, especially coming up. Because tonight is the number of the beast. And it's going to be such a buzzkill. Well, it's going to be one of those things where it's like, oh, the number of the beast, we're gonna calculate it, we're going to figure it out, and in the end it's going to be like, you know what, it probably means this, and and it's so anticlimactic. All right, any questions before we move on to chapter 13? And we will actually finish chapter 13 tonight. I'm dedicated to it. We probably won't, but we totally will. All right, so now we're going to see, so say we leave the dragon, he's standing on the beach, on the shores of the sea. And now we're going to see two beasts rising up. Oh, no. Okay, so terrifying stuff, right? So let's move into chapter 13, verses 1 through 4. And I saw a beast rising out of the sea with 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 diadems on its horns and blasphemous names on its heads. And the beast that I saw was like a leopard. Oh, I bet you can't wait till I draw this. Its feet were like a bear's, and its mouth was like a lion's mouth. And to the dragon gave his power, and his throne and great authority. One of its heads seemed to have a mortal wound, but its mortal wound was healed. And the whole earth marveled as they followed the beast. And they worshipped the dragon, for he had given his authority to the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, who is like the beast, and who can fight against it? Okay. Here we go. All right.
Just draw what?
Yeah, okay. Oh boy. But it has, so it's
With spots.
okay. So it's a. right? It's a cat, right? It's a leopard? Okay.
Well, the mouth is a lion.
Rawr, all right. There we go.
It has those 7
Its
horns.
body is like, well, we're getting there. Okay, so its body is like a, okay, so it's, okay, whatever. Okay.
Donkey.
And it's got, a leopard has spots, right? So that's a cheetah. Whatever. This leopard has spots. Okay. Its feet are like bears, so it's got really big, rawr, bear feet. All right, there's his bare feet. Okay, rawr, terrifying, right? Oh, I've got a comment. You have artistic license, draw however you want. Oh, and I am abusing that license. Okay, it's got how many? What's it got?
7 heads.
Oh, okay. Well,
Just give them all.
times 7. 10 horns. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Ooh. You would be terrified if you saw this anywhere.
Right.
But rising out of the sea. All right. That's beautiful. Oh, and it's got diadems on its horns. All right, so there we go. Little crowns on its horns. Whatever. Okay. So it comes from the sea. The sea is a place of chaos, of upheaval, constant motion, never-ending turmoil. It is a place where monsters live that overtake ships. It is a evil place. Okay, this is kind of the ancient understanding of the seas. Isaiah 57:21 says, "The wicked are like the tossing of the sea. There's no rest or peace for them. The waves pick up slime and dirt and muck." So the sea is bad. Similar to the dragon, right? It's got 7 heads. Oh, I'm losing my 7 here. So times 7. It's got 7 heads, just like the dragon. It looks like the dragon. It's got 10 horns, like the dragon. It's very similar to the dragon. Oh, boy. Heather commented, "Wow, your children are terrified." As they should be, from the beast of Revelation. I swear I used to be an artist. Clearly I still am. Looks like the dragon. Very, very similar to the dragon. And these 10 heads, or 7 heads and 10 horns definitely connects it. He belongs to Satan, right? The 10 diadems on its horns, diadems denoting like royal authority, dominion. But there's a slight difference because the dragon had the diadems on its heads, right? This one has the diadems on its horns. Oh, she's taking a picture. Oh, well, we won't erase this. Are you kidding? This is going to be immortalized here at church. We're going to get a big poster, put it in the hallway. So the picture of the dragon, of Satan, is he's got these diadems on his heads. So the head is what guides, the head is in charge, right? It has the brain. So Satan claims divine or royal authority, or ultimate authority, and he is at the top. This beast is kind of under him, serves Satan. His power lies in his strength, because horns denote strength and might. So his authority is predicated on strength of power. Okay. Blasphemous names on its head or on its heads. Trying to think of a blasphemous name that's family friendly here. I can think of a few blasphemous names, but that wouldn't be good for here. We might lose some viewers. See, if Aiden was here, he would have one like that. Watch the comments. So, blasphemy. Okay.
How many?
What's that?
Like other gods, like Baal.
Could be, could be. Well, when we get into more of the identification of what this represents, okay, spoiler alert. What this beast is going to represent is essentially, we'll call it civil authority. I don't want to come right out and say it's the government, but it's the government.
They're more like kings.
Yeah. So, and a lot of commentators try to pin names like so. We got Caesar, and we've got all these names of rulers throughout time, and they try to figure out like 10 or 7 specific ones. And of course, every different guy has a different collection of 7. We're not going to get that specific. So either a blasphemous name in that sense, but I don't really, well, first of all, I don't go down the road of it's somebody's name. Because the blasphemous names on his head represents, well, who is Satan particularly targeting? Like, yes, he's down here, he's afflicting everyone, but who does he really want?
Jesus.
Well, the believers, right? Yeah, anybody who follows Christ. So the names are going to be blasphemous, meaning that he is associated with anything having to do with rejection of God, profaning God. His attacks are pointed to say like, for us to say, even for us to say the names that are on the heads are blasphemous. So, his attempt to even put blasphemies into the mouths of people. So he's really trying to blaspheme God and all the saints. So I don't go down the road of individual rulers. Because, you got to pick 7. I'm like, well, who do you... You can pick out 7 from the ancient world real easy.
They can change.
Well, yeah, and then and you can go with just ancient rulers. Well, where's Hitler? Come on, right? Everybody, he's your go-to, evil guy. So it's just kind of a general sort of thing. So the appearance, this leopard, bear, lion thing, is a composite, really, of these 4 beasts that Daniel saw in his vision. So Daniel chapter 7, Daniel declared, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the 4 winds of heaven, we've heard about 4 winds in the Revelation, were stirring up the great sea, okay, and 4 great beasts came up out of the sea, different from one another. The first was like a lion, had eagle's wings. Then as I looked, its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted up from the ground and made to stand on 2 feet like a man, and the mind of a man was given to it. Behold, another beast, the second one like a bear. It was raised up on one side. It had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth, and it was told, arise, devour much flesh. After this, I behold another like a leopard with 4 wings of a bird on its back. Yada, yada. After this, I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, terrifying and dreadful and exceedingly strong. It had great iron teeth. It devoured and broke in pieces. It was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. So basically what we're seeing here is we got one? Okay, a composite of all these beasts. So basically, Daniel's vision, all squished together. Got a couple comments here online. I once heard someone liken the beast to the Catholic Church. Wrong beast. We'll get to that one. And to all my Catholic friends, read some Luther. I'm going easy on you. Yeah, hold off on Jacob. Hold off. We'll get there. So now what we're dealing with, the identification then. A lot of people, ancient world, still today, say, okay, this is the Roman Empire. They definitely go with, okay, it's authority, it's government, but it is a representation of the Roman Empire because, well, who was in charge in the time of John? The Roman Empire. Okay, except, well, this has got to have broad appeal and beyond this, right? So, yes, it does represent Rome in the same way Babylon represents Rome. When he talks about Babylon the Great or Babylon or going off into Egypt or going, or Rome, anything. All this means is the forces that are against the church. So Rome is a stand-in for Babylon, is a stand-in for this, that, and the other, is a stand-in for any government, country, whatever you want to choose. So this is what it's dealing with is what this beast represents is every authority that Satan, the dragon, can corrupt and control in order to afflict humans. So, government, right? So we're talking about...
The four winds represented the complete earth, right?
They can, yeah.
And since he's a composite of the four winds,
Yeah.
then he
So just-
represents the entire earth.
Oh, yeah. Well, and anytime you look anywhere, any society, even your most basic society, there is some system of government, some way of, or authority. So this isn't, yeah, we see it everywhere. So this is political, this is government, this is social authority, economic authority, philosophical, educational, education authority, whatever, even individual, like I control everything, whatever, it's all about me. So any sort of civil, human authority, Satan can corrupt. And guess what? He does. Would you say that that is true of our country? Absolutely.
We're a theocracy, right?
What?
We're
We're
a theocracy.
a theocracy. Absolutely. Every government is a theocracy. It's just, this is not a Christian theocracy by any stretch. We're a theocracy of I am my own God. That's why I love arguments about like government and society and all that. It's like, you Christians just want to make this a theocracy. I'm like, I do not. Believe me. It was funny in Oklahoma. Hi, Oklahoma friends. There was people there, they really wanted, they wanted prayer in school. They wanted, and I'm the new Lutheran pastor in town, and I'm horrified. I'm like, oh my God, the last thing I want is prayer in school. Because I don't know how they're praying. and I heard story when Caitlin, she was in preschool there for like a year or kindergarten. And yeah, there was like a couple teachers who prayed with the students. And she told me that. I was horrified because I'm like, I know how they pray here. And it's not right. So yeah, the last thing I want is government endorsing or saying anything about our faith. I don't even trust some of my fellow pastors sometimes. I'm like, I'm not sure. I don't think you have that right. So I wouldn't trust. I probably shouldn't say that on the record. Sorry, I just got back from the district convention and I heard a couple things where I was like, what? Oh my God. Okay. Which is another reason why I don't like this. But anyway, so yeah, and Satan corrupts any sort of, church council authority. Certainly when you get a whole bunch of people sitting on a church council and they're looking out for, we want to just do stuff for ourselves. Well, there you go. He's, getting his little fingers into it. All right. What other things can we talk about here? Oh, did we talk about his mortal wound? Or was that later?
No,
No,
it was in there.
It was in there? Okay. Okay, yeah, so he has a mortal wound, oh no! But it's been healed, so it's a Band-Aid. Okay. Which kind of, Mary Ann's comment, amen to that. So mortal wound. So if this represents government, or a civil authority, government, well, what happens with any civil authority? It gets what? Overthrown, right? Every 4 years we have a revolution, a change of authority, right? Sometimes, or once every 8 years, sometimes. So one authority is struck dead, and when another one takes its place. So it's a wound that is healed over. So it just represents the turnover of authority. That, yes, it looks like, hey, you can defeat it, but guess what? It keeps coming back. You can tell government, get away, but it always comes back. I swear, this is my favorite section. I can go on for hours on this guy. All right. Worships the dragon. To worship anything other than God, that's pretty much it. So basically, and what this is saying is like, so anybody who worships this worships the dragon. I mean, because who is our authority? I mean, God, right? I mean, we have no other authority. The government, our government, well, any government, only gets authority from God. Now, how they use that is a whole different discussion. So that's why, like, if I mentioned this in Sunday school, it's like, I don't care. This is my little teenage anarchist coming out. I don't care what laws or courts or anything say. I mean, to a degree I care. But I mean, in terms of what, if they say something like, this is what you should do, or this is allowable, or this is good and this is evil, I don't care. I go by what God says. And if they say something evil is good, then I'm going to say no. And that's it. I mean, thankfully, most of the time, or no, some of the time, government gets some stuff right. Well, like, when they say, hey, we're going to punish you if you steal from somebody, I say, amen. That's right. It's when they get into all the other stuff, When you drive more than 5 miles over the speed limit, ticket. It's like, no, that's against God. When you park in the wrong spot and they tow you. No. But, I mean, anytime it goes against God, obviously, it's like, well, we don't follow unjust laws, right? Now, thankfully, the government rarely compels us to do anything. But just because the government says this is good or this is bad, that's not our standard of measure. So, before I say anything else, and we see if anybody in the government is watching this and they come through the doors real quick. The last thing it says, who is like, so the people see this and they say, who is like the beast and who can fight against it? So you see any overarching civil authority and you look at it and it's huge and you wonder, like, who can oppose it, right? And it's always a struggle if you want to oppose it. The beast of Revelation. And if you really want to get deep here, it rises up out of the sea, which is a place of chaos and evil and turmoil. Well, if that doesn't say politics, I don't know what does.
You can call it the swamp.
Yeah, exactly, the swamp, right? Oh my God. Exactly, yes. So this is one of those where it's like Revelation, John wasn't even really trying to hide it. Like, this one's easy to figure out. All right, any questions before we move on to what he does or activities? All right. Activities of the beast, so verses 5 through 10. The beast was given a mouth, of course, uttering haughty and blasphemous words. Politicians can't shut up. And it was allowed to exercise authority for how long? 42 months.
Surprise.
It opened its mouth to utter blasphemies against God. Here we go. Blaspheming his name and his dwelling, that is, those who dwell in heaven. Also, it was allowed to make war on the saints and to conquer them. And authority was given it over every tribe and people and language and nation. Everybody has government of some shade. And all who dwell on the earth will worship it, everyone whose name has not been written before the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb who was slain. If anyone has an ear, let him hear. If anyone is to be taken captive, to captivity he goes. If anyone is to be slain with a sword he must be slain. Here is a call for the endurance and faith of the saints. There was a comment on one of my rants. He says, oh, come on, don't leave us hanging. All right, so all we see here is the beast afflicts everyone, but especially the saints. He's saying blasphemous things. Unbelievers don't care about blasphemous things. They are blasphemous things, as much as I love them. He's blaspheming God. He makes war on the saints to conquer them. And everybody who's not been written in the book of life worship this beast, which, yeah. Because, good Lord, you look at, for a lot of people in this country, politics is a secular religion. Who are we? Who's going to help you? Government. Who's going to save you? Government. When you get old, who's going to provide for you? Government, Social Security, right? What do you trust in as long as you have money? Okay, who prints the money? So, I mean, everything, we are conditioned, even, I mean, to a degree, even in a passive way, trusting that government's going to take care of us. People are going to take care of us. Yeah, I mean, that's the foundation of civil religion, is that you trust in some kind of authority to take care of all you need, to provide everything you need. Well, we like it when they do. It makes life a little bit more comfortable, but I mean, we trust God. And so the way we look at it is like, well, if the government provides for us, it's because they've been given authority from God. So we worship God, knowing he provides everything, and we pray. That's why we pray every Sunday. And Lord, give us good leaders. Please bless them, guide them, shape them, show them the way. Because we know we don't trust them ultimately, but we know that God has given us this to help us, to take care of us. Unfortunately, this is always made up of sinful people, and you know how that goes. Let's see. Oh, this little last part is, if anyone has an ear, let him hear. If you are headed, basically, this whole, if anyone is to be taken captive, captivity goes. If anyone is to be slain, basically, this is it's a reminder to Christians, say like, endure, be patient, trust in God, because this beast controls everything that you see. Not in the sense that, God is in control. Yes, we know this. God is in control of all things. But when we set up countries, states, cities, whatever, we create governments, we hope that's good, but Satan uses this to afflict us. So he says, if you're headed to captivity, you're going to captivity. If you trust in God, you hold on to your faith, cling to your faith, and resist this, you might go into captivity. And you know what? If that happens, you're going to captivity. Some of you might die. And if you die, you die. Yeah. It's just saying like, this is going to happen. Don't be afraid of it. Don't be surprised by it. Oh, there's a comment. Jacob's comment, he has cough, abortion, cough. Oh, we talked about that Sunday. That's old news. We covered this already in detail. But the idea is, okay. So he says, if you're going in captivity, that's where you're going. If you're going to be killed, you're going to be killed. Now, this seems awfully familiar. Matthew 10. And do not fear those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather, fear him who can destroy both soul and body in hell. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny, and not one of them will fall to the ground apart from your Father? But even the hairs of your head are numbered. Fear not, therefore you are more value than many sparrows. So, I mean, it sounds very much like that, where Jesus says, don't be afraid of those who kill the body. So all John is saying is like, don't be afraid to cling to God, and whatever this might do to you, don't be afraid. What are they going to do? Throw you in jail? Maybe. What are they going to do? Kill you? Maybe. But Jesus says, don't be afraid of those who can kill the body. No, be afraid of the one who can destroy both body and soul in hell. Fear God. And if you're written in the Lamb's Book of Life, then you're good. So it is kind of a little encouragement there where he says, like, yes, this is terrifying, but don't be afraid of this. Which is the ongoing theme of Revelation. We see like, this is the ugly spiritual face of something that we see every day of our lives. This is not unusual. We see this all the time. And what Revelation says is, don't be afraid of that. You're written in the Lamb's Book of Life. God's got you. Well, if this one, he can kill you. Then you're up in heaven rejoicing with everybody. Like, okay. So yeah, don't be afraid of that guy. He's that pussy cat. Okay. Any questions about beast number 1?
Is there a connection to Saul and Israel clamoring for a king?
Is there a connection? I'm sure you could make one, yeah. Oh, the question was, is there a connection with Saul and Israel's desire for a king? Absolutely. In in respect to, what they had was God was their king. But things got so bad, their sin was so strong and evident to them that what they did was they realized, our sin is so bad, what are we going to do? And God's like, I got this. And they're like, no, we need a king like everybody else has one. And God's like, no, you don't want that. And he says, no.
You'll be sorry.
Exactly, you'll be sorry. And the people were like, oh, no, we won't. And then, so, yeah, definitely. And, really, all it shows is that, if you really want to, if you really want to not be plagued by this, who do you trust? God. People will always want this. We want this. You get mugged. What do you want? You want that. Here's the thing. Yeah, so somebody mugs you, takes all your stuff. What do you want to do? Turn the other cheek and say, go and enjoy. All I have is God's anyway, and now it's yours, and it's okay. Or do you find them and get my stuff and lock them up? We want this. We always want this. Just like the people of Israel. That's what they wanted. They had God. They had God with them. Tabernacle, all that good stuff, right? And they're like, no, we want a king that we can come to. It's like, oh my God. He was right there. He traveled with you. Yeah. And they're like, no, we want, the crown and all that. So yeah, that's just sin. This is what sin does. We want this in times of stress, in times of worry. It's harder to just, let it go. Yeah.
Do we see that same dynamic within the church where you get like a pastor who's very predominant and people just kind of go, Pastor so-and-so?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah. The question was, do we see this in the church? Like a pastor, like cult of personality kind of guy?
Yeah.
Oh, good Lord, yes. I would like to say that you see it more in non-denominational churches. Because at least in denominational churches, there's some sort of a limits and barriers. Structure, yeah. Non-denominational churches usually are sprung out from a pastor or a person who feels a call, who feels some vision from God or whatever, and starts their own church. And really it becomes about them. And you've got, good Lord, any of your huge mega churches, Rick Warren, cult of personality kind of guy. Joel Osteen. Oh gosh, who was that guy out in Mars Hill?
Rob Bell.
That was a different guy, but yeah, he went off. Mark Driscoll, that's who I was thinking of, Mark Driscoll. Oh, he was, yeah. And the fun thing is that they start their own church, and it's really about them. And then, of course, every one of them collapses in some kind of a controversy or scandal. They go off. They spend about a year in purgatory, laying low, and then they pop up somewhere else. Guess what they're doing? Starting another church. And it's so yeah. You see this happening a lot, but you see it in churches. I've seen it in LCMS churches, absolutely. And it's. I get it. And people, I can see how it works. It's easy. The pastor is visible. He's there. In a way, that's by design. The pastor, when I stand up there, I'm standing in the place of Christ. And I'm not saying it's like, you need to look at me like, I'm Jesus for you right now. It's like, well, preaching, yeah. Giving you the sacraments, absolutely. Everything that I do up there to provide and deliver grace and mercy and forgiveness, absolutely. I'm standing in the place of Christ. Now, I'm the worst possible example. Chief of sinners though I be. every time I'm right before the sermon, when you see me praying over there, I'm praying, God, why did you put me here? And please don't let me screw this up. That's the bulk of my prayer. I say, please when I do this, make sure it's not about me. Help me to do this well so that your word goes out. I don't know why I'm here, because I've failed and I've been horrible this week and I do not deserve to be in this position. But you know what? Thank you, and I'm going to try. And I'm just going to trust that you're going to do whatever you do with this. That's what I'm praying over there, almost word for word every time. So yeah, you got to really push it off. Because, when you're in a position of power, any power, it corrupts. It's the whole thing, like, you get people going to government, very idealistic. The whole thing, oh, they have great ideals. And then what happens 10 years down the road, they're just as crooked as anybody else. And it's just, because power is intoxicating. When you exercise any sort of authority over somebody, if you're not careful, it really does a number on you. And it can change you. And people like authority. Good Lord have mercy. We had a church in town in Skiatook. It was the first, the major Baptist church in town. It was a huge one. Back in the day, they ran the town. You couldn't, if what they told me was if Halloween was ever on a Wednesday, the town canceled trick-or-treating, because Wednesday night was evening service at Baptist church night, and no way in hell was Satan going to have his holiday on church night. Even though it's All Hallows Eve, it's actually a religious holiday, but let's not get into that. So anyway, there was a video, a YouTube video. Somebody shot a YouTube video or got video from the church stream inside the church one Sunday, where the pastor, total cult personality pastor, saw somebody who was nodding off, stopped the sermon, came down and berated this person up and down, basically saying, you're not worth anything. You should just get out of here. And then somebody was snickering. He's like, you got something to say? And he jumped from people to people and then was talking about the people in the sound booth and how they were goofing off. And he was going off on everybody. And I saw this. I'm like, oh my God, that church is done. It was terrible. I should laugh about it. But a lot of weird, shady stuff happened that I heard about. And the scary thing was that as many people were appalled by it, people loved him, supported him, and thought, yep, that's tough love right there. He cares about those people. This is all the hallmarks of an abusive relationship. It's Stockholm Syndrome. They're like, oh, no, he's preaching the word of God. I'm like, he's not. But yeah, it's people love that stuff. They like authority, even when it's mean. That's why abusive relationships are so god-awful and why it's so hard to get out of them. Because authority corrupts, and it's just, there's something about it that keeps you enslaved. Government. All right. Oh, okay, so it's 6:54. I could go fast. I really want to get to this. Okay, just hang with me for give me 10 minutes, okay? We can do this, right? Okay, so, all right. We're moving on. Verse 11, okay? And it's just one section, so we'll read it and we'll get to it. Okay. Then I saw another beast rising out of the earth. It had 2 horns like a lamb, and it spoke like a dragon. It exercises all the authority of the first beast in its presence and makes the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, whose mortal wound was healed. It performs great signs, even making fire come down from heaven to earth in front of people. And by the signs that it was allowed to work in the presence of the beast, it deceives those who dwell on earth, telling them to make an image for the beast that was wounded by the sword and yet lived. And it was allowed to give breath to the image of the beast, so that the image of the beast might even speak and might cause those who would not worship the image of the beast to be slain. Also, it causes all, both small and great, both rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or on the forehead, so that no one can buy or sell unless he has the mark, that is the name of the beast or the number of its name. This calls for wisdom. Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Ooh, okay. Very dramatic. All right, so we have a different beast who, oh gosh, I can't draw a lamb. I don't even know what a lamb looks like. Like, does the lamb have floppy ears?
Yes.
Okay, so
Snoopy?
Snoopy, yeah, okay. Okay, so it's a beagle or whatever. All right, it's all curled up. It's okay. It is a dog, okay. Lamb. And it's got horns, right? So it's got horns like a lamb. There we go. See, it's a...
Lambs don't have horns.
Starting to look like a palm tree.
It's a lamb. Okay, so let's call it a lamb. All right, if this can be a leopard, that can be a lamb. It's a ram. Okay, so there we go. But it says it looks like a lamb, but it just has horns. Oh yeah, get the picture. Okay. So it's a different beast, but what does it look like? A lamb. Who else is a lamb in Scripture?
Jesus.
So this is a beast who is masquerading.
As Jesus.
So is a false Jesus. Okay? Meekness. Frailty. It does great signs and wonders, calls down fire, okay? And it gets everybody to worship this one. So the lamb represents false religion. The two ways that Satan really uses to afflict people: civil authority and false religion. False religion makes you want to worship this one. Well, it always points back to yourself. We're trusting yourself in all things. Anything points to anything other than God, right? So this is just, it speaks like the dragon, so it looks like Jesus, but it speaks like dragon. Meaning, how do you know false religion? It looks very good, right? It looks like the real thing. How do you tell? What it says. Other words, doctrine. Oh, that awful word that people complain about Lutherans focusing so much time on, that we care more about doctrine than we care about people. It's like, well, we care about people just fine. We just find doctrine to be really important because it gets you away from that. Doctrine is incredibly important because this includes pagan religions, secular religion, apostate Christianity, cults, whatever. All this stuff. This is religious tyranny. It always works together with this. Government allows religion only so far as it what? Supports, or at least doesn't get in the way of, right? Exactly. And look at any oppressive country. Good Lord, go look up what China has done to Catholicism there. How they're rewriting the scriptures for Chinese Christians to make it more communist, and basically using Christianity to legitimize their thing. Any Middle Eastern country that is, Islamic, theocracy kind of stuff, right? Government loves religion as long as it agrees with it, supports it, promotes it. Government hates religion if it's, pointing to God, pointing away from government. That's why, our country, is so accommodating of religion. As long as it accommodates this. There are some, the government will allow some weird stuff with religions because they're like, well, okay, just do your thing. But there's limits. Oh boy, there's limits. You know what, when they transgress? You know what happens? Or what the thing is when what government can't abide is when it affects
Money.
taxes, money. That's fun. What's the biggest threat? You churches, what can I not do from the pulpit? Well, I can do anything, really. But I can't endorse a political party or a candidate. I can't preach about political stuff from the pulpit, right? I mean, I can, but what happens? They revoke our tax-exempt status. So would you say that the government restricts what I can say here? It's like, well, no, they don't. I can say whatever I want. But they incentivize. Now, I'm not going to do that anyway because I don't want to. I've got much better things to preach about in like Christ. Last thing I'm going to preach about is, I think there was a time in Oklahoma where it was like a presidential election. I'm like, here's my political sermon. Don't be an idiot. Just do something. Just think about what you're doing and do something. Just don't be an idiot. that was the basic. Like pick somebody who will do good for people. I don't care who, whatever. So anyway, all right. So we get all this, but then we get 666. It's not, well, is it 666 or is it 666? Well, all right. The number of the, and the whole thing about either in the hand or the forehead, the mark of the beast. Okay, so it's a tattoo. It's a microchip. It's symbolic. Exactly. It's like, okay, so somebody is marked on the hand or on the forehead with the mark of the beast. Okay, so that's everybody who is not written in the Lamb's Book of Life, right? So there's some way that we're set, so the believers and the unbelievers are set apart. Unbelievers are marked with the mark of the beast. His name is upon them, right? The mark is the number of his name, right?
Is that 666?
Right, yeah, and we're going to get to what this translates to. But the mark, either on the head or on the forehead, it says, is the mark of his name. And that's what it is. So unbelievers are marked somehow, invisibly, with the name of the adversary. Now, I wonder if believers had an invisible mark in which they had the name of their God on them. Like baptism, where we have the name of God placed upon us. Comment, but weren't the chosen already marked on the forehead? Let me go back here. So it says, okay. So it says that, okay, so the picture we get is the image of the beast. Anybody who does not worship the image of the beast is slain. It causes all, both great and rich or small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or the forehead, so that no one can buy or sell unless he has the mark, that is the name of the beast. So, I mean, it doesn't explicitly say that, like, only these people, but we are marked in baptism with the name of Christ. So we do not have a name of anybody else on us. His name is above all names. So, the implication there is that we are marked by Christ. Anybody else, if you're not marked by Christ, then you're marked by Satan. I mean, it's just, that's how it goes. Jacob says, sounds like progressive Christianity. It's a funny thing. All right. So, number of the beast. So, the number of his name. Okay, let's see. I came prepared. All right, so, it's a human number. Number of a man. Oh, there's a comment. My mom was referring to the believers being marked in baptism. So yes, correct. Yes. We are marked in baptism. Yes. We are already marked. And in fact, I think earlier in Revelation it talks about those who are, covered, yada, yada, yada. So we are apart from that. Anyway. All right. So in very popular ancient Judaism, Hebrew tradition was this practice, I think I spelled that right? Gematria? Yeah, I did. It is a method of assigning, it's just like assigning numbers to letters. It was a really big deal. People did it for a lot of stuff. Every culture, pretty much ancient cultures had practices like this. There was a Greek way of doing it. So basically, you get your alphabet and you assign different values to different numbers or different letters. And so when you have a word or a name, you can find out the number of the name, like the numeric value of the name. So 666. All right, so if that's a number, okay, 666. Well, let's see. So we got what, 200, right? That's 200 plus 60 plus what, 100? So that's what, 360, right? And then the noon is 50. That's a va, that's 6. Resh is what, 200. Another noon is 50, which is what? 306, right? So you add these together. Ooh. This says, and you got to read it backwards because it's, of course, Hebrew. This is oh, sorry. Oh, I have that wrong. There's no. Well, Neron Kaiser, Nero Caesar. Ooh. So the number of the beast refers to Nero. Ooh. Sure. Okay. There's a slight issue with this in that this is only in the Hebrew. When you use Greek, and the way they numbered it, Nero Caesar is actually the value is 1005. So, now there's also some interesting things where, so Neron Caesar, which is a way of spelling it, 666. There's some alternate readings or alternate manuscripts where the number is actually 616. These are minority manuscripts, so people say like, oh, they made a spelling mistake. Well, the fun thing is that if you do 616, what this does is you can also spell it, this is called an energic nun, you don't even, sometimes Hebrew adds an extra N to the end of some things. So you get rid of that, you still have Nero Kaiser, and it actually takes off a 50, so you get 616. So the fun thing is that even with a variant number, it still equals the same thing. The problem with that is that it's only Hebrew. Now, if we're using Hebrew, the Old Testament, which was written in Hebrew and Aramaic, as our codex, then that makes sense, okay? Now, people kind of look at this and say, oh, yes, Nero Caesar. So that is, yes, this is what we were saying, the name, mark of the beast. It's like, well, but we're talking about Satan before. So, oh, well, Nero Caesar, because this is the second beast, so this is the Antichrist, so it's got to be Nero. Nero had been dead for 20 years when John wrote this. A new Caesar was in charge. New Caesar who was doing things to Christians. So you could say this is representative of anybody who, and the Caesars were exalted themselves to godhood, essentially. They were gods, okay? They wanted people to worship them as gods. So you could say that this Nero Caesar represents any authority that places itself as God, which fills the role of an antichrist. Okay, fine. So, the numbers, so anybody who trusts in civil religion, whatever. Like, okay, that works. That's fine. If you go that route, there's a nice little uplift there where he says, oh, the mark of the beast number is 600, Nero Caesar, but Caesar's been dead for 20 years. So it's like, okay, if you're worried about this beast, don't worry, because he's already dead. He's already been defeated. So trust in God. Woohoo!
The beast heals himself.
Yeah, it does work really well, which seems to lend itself to something.
What is the buying and selling?
Well, that's where people kind of get, had a comment online about the number won't be tattooed under his hair. Obviously, a clear reference to the movie The Omen. Thank you, Mom. I watched that movie so often when I was a kid. This is why I'm a pastor now. I watched too many movies about the devil when I was younger. I'm like, I need protection. Wait, what was the question?
I knew
Part
it was.
about buying and selling.
Oh, buying and selling. So yeah, that's why people get like, oh, it's a microchip, and because you barcode or whatever. It's like, well, John wouldn't be telling his people about barcodes and microchips. All it probably, and again, if we're going symbolically speaking, so he's saying, so basically all the world, what Satan, how he tries to corrupt things is by saying like, oh, if you follow me, then you're allowed freedom to do this, to that, to buy, to sell. You can enter into the marketplace. You can take part in this wonderful world that I am in charge of here. Just have my name on you, which then it makes a lot more sense. Where it's like, okay, because you look at what are we told? Where Christians aren't supposed to speak up in the public square, right? It's like keep your religion to yourself. We see shades of this. Where it's like, it's not to the level of you can't buy or sell anything, but if it's not buying or selling, but you can't take part in the life of the public, well, I think that's a fairly well-established thing. You look at countries that are very oppressive and more, have the religion that controls everything, you actually see that plainly. There's laws against other religions. In Muslim countries, Christians have to pay a special tax to allow them to live, to be there, right? What is it, the Jizra or something like that? I forget what it's called. I'm sorry for anybody who speaks any of those languages. My bad. So in that regard, it works really well. So this could work. It does seem to work out real well. Sure, okay. I used to really, I loved this because it was like, oh my gosh, it adds up and it's just so perfect. Is it? Maybe. It could be. It works. And it doesn't discount, it doesn't conflict with anything. But I've kind of come to a new place with this where, what do we see? We see the dragon and we see two beasts. Okay? What is the number of God? Or what is one of the numbers of God? 7, right? Holy Spirit was represented by 7 things. So 7 is a good number referring to God. And if we're going to refer to God as a Trinity, using a number of God, what would it be?
777.
All right. What is this number?
6.
It's not God. It's close, right?
Yeah.
It's one off. It wants to be. It really tries hard to be. It's like, oh, I want to be 7 so bad. It's just, it gets close. Also, okay, so Satan certainly is the adversary, but our own sinful flesh, right? That's what he plays off of. Well, what day of creation were we created on? 6th day of creation. So mankind created on the 6th day. Mankind is the one who fell into sin, who was tempted. So there's this kind of connection here with mankind and Satan and sin and all that. Well, we have Satan and 2 beasts. Satan, the dragon, wants to be God, presents himself as God, presents himself as divine and authoritative. The lamb, the Snoopy lamb, looks like Jesus, wants people to think it's Jesus, but is not. So this number seems to be like, you know what? Maybe it's just representative of just Satan and evil and everything that is not God, but puts itself in the place of God. I lean towards this one now. I like this, and it does fit, and if it does fit, then cool. I would say that's really awesome, and there might be meaning behind that. Maybe John and his audience, yeah, there was a bigger connection there. We don't have that now. So I think this really, this fits in with that whole paradigm too. And especially with the presentation of 3 things: dragon, beast, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. So it does kind of show this unholy trinity. And not to say that there's some special, like there's, oh gosh, one of my favorite movies, The Prince of Darkness, is a John Carpenter flick. Just terrible B movie, the Antichrist comes and wants to take over. And there's an unholy trinity, the anti-God, the Antichrist, and basically like the unholy spirit. And there are these three things. And it's a fun, stupid movie. There's no like hierarchy of like, oh, well, there's Satan, but then there's his daddy, who's the no. This is just a representation of everything that opposes God, which Satan represents. So I tend to go this route nowadays. It's less exciting than this, and I love doing the math, and like when I do this and people are like, oh my gosh, the math works, and it's so perfect. Like, yeah, it is. But even this, so even if this is Nero and Caesar, and this is what it adds up to, and this is what that means, it still represents this. Because we don't have any connection to this guy. We have our own Neros.
It's kind of interesting, a literal parallel here. The buying and selling, typically it takes money, right?
Yes, buying and selling does take money.
Jesus is the description of who the money belongs to.
Oh, sure. Oh, well, yeah. See, that's great.
Good picture.
Yes, perfect. Yeah, there you go. For anybody who didn't hear, he mentioned the connection with money. So you can't buy or sell. And when Jesus points to the coin and says, whose face is on this? Caesar's. Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. So yeah, and if you really want to push, that's all sorts of fun stuff. You go into the Psalms, or Isaiah rather, and he talks about, Psalms? Yeah. Talks about when we get to, talking about the new creation, come and buy things without price. There's no more money. Well, there is no money. There's no concept because God provides. And that's the idea, is God provides everything. So yeah, I like that a lot. See, there's room for a lot of, and expanding the understanding here. There's a lot to play with this. But yeah. It's cool stuff, but again, it's a lot less sexy than like, and we're going to get tattoos and barcodes, and there's a number, 666, It's just like, 42 months, 3.5. All we have so far in the last, what we had tonight, it's 7:20, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, is basically all it says is, for the time that you are here until Christ returns, there will be tribulation. They're rejoicing in heaven, don't worry, because Christ is reigning. He's defeated Satan. But you know what? While you're here, he's going to attack you. He's going to use civil authority. He's going to use false religion. And as we go on, it'll be like, trust in God. He's got you. He'll protect you. So, like, all this stuff is very, dramatic. It's very blah. There's tribulation. Jesus got you. Amen. It all ends on a good note. So any questions? There's my lamb. I need to come back to this one just because it's awesome. Okay. All right, well, if there's no questions on that, we'll call it a day. And thank you for sticking with me an extra 20 minutes. I thought it would be quicker, but I really wanted to, I couldn't, we had to do it, so. All right. Cool. Well, we'll be back at it next week, so thank you for coming. Thank you for watching, and good night.